They're bringing.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so I was trying to find out just to compare what the average precipitation is in Washington, D.C. to compare to Eilat. So it says here 89.7 millimeters. I'm guessing that that's per month because I did here on the left, there's all kinds of options. And so if I did the calculation correctly, it is about 1,076 millimeters a year. I'm not sure why there isn't inches here, but I'm guessing that that's that's quite a few feet of rain and snow during the year. In Eilat, in comparison, which is going to be the focus of our study today, it says here rainfall in Eilat is minimal and almost non-existent from June to September. A total of just 1 millimeter to 6 millimeters is recorded throughout the entire year. When I was younger, it was a little bit more than that. I'm guessing that things changed in the climate and it became more and more dry. But if I remember correctly from my geography classes, it was, I think, 25 millimeters a year. But anyway, that's not enough to fill a mikvah because that is very, very, very small. So, Rav Yosef Shmaya Hecht became the chief rabbi of Eilat in 1979 after doing a short stay with six other guys as the shlichim of the rabbi and of the Rebbe in Tzfat.
Mhm.
And then he moved to Eilat and became the chief Ashkenazi rabbi of Eilat. And so his first project was to open a Chabad mikvah there, and the other mikvahs were very, very poorly kept. And so he wrote a very long letter to the Rebbe, who of course knew exactly what the climate is like, and asked him what to do. And he said, arrange for two 18-wheel trucks to go to the Hermon during the winter and pile them up with snow. And that way you'll fill the mikvah, as we discussed briefly on Wednesday. And so, if I understand the story correctly, my mother was a mikvah lady for many years. The minute that the wheels of the trucks started moving, meaning after they were already loaded with all the snow that was necessary for the mikvah, um, there was a sudden rainfall that filled the mikvah in Eilat that they've never seen such a rain before. So this was either 1979 or 1980, and so they obviously called off the operation, but they paid for the trucks and everything else that was involved in that. But so it was a miracle. And it was just, this is the amazing story that I was talking about on Wednesday, that when you do your efforts, you do your shtadlut of what's called, and you have full bitachon on Hashem that everything will work out, and then that was the blessing of that rain. And I don't think that it ever happened again since. About 13 years ago, they opened another mikveh in Eilat, but I'm not sure what the operation there was, but it did not involve the snow. Um, so I just wanted to share that with you. And so, if you remember, we talked about the preparation of food on Shabbat, and we said that crushing snow is not considered sochet because you're allowed to do it with your hands immediately for the meal, and you're also allowed to put ice in the cup and let it melt. It is preferable if there's a little bit of liquid before that way you don't recognize which is which. It doesn't have to be a rov. And the Shulchan Aruch and the Mishnah Berurah talk about the other possibilities of creating water from snow, and they're all allowed because we don't use the water that is resulting from that. So, just as a reminder, the Shulchan Aruch quoted the Rambam about stepping in the snow on Shabbat. I'm guessing that in Egypt there isn't too much snow, but in Babylon and other places, there are much colder areas. In Lebanon, which used to be part of the Jewish country, the kingdom of David and Shlomo, there's a lot of mountains that have snow, so Rambam says that if you step on the snow on Shabbat and it melts, that's not considered mitkaven, and you don't actually enjoy the water that has resulted from that, even if it was on purpose. And also the urinating in the snow, you don't have to be worried about. So what's very strange is that when we talked a little bit about kiyum and about mitkaven and all the other categories of the melacha, we said that you're not supposed to um, pour water where it might grow things out of it. Um, but I was reminded that when we were in the army, there were some places where the kitchen was not a solid building, it was just like a trailer. And so they had a long pipe from the sink that led into just the sand. And so every time that we emptied the sink after washing the dishes, it would go into this pipe and then eventually result in growth. So there was a lot of mint that was growing there and all kinds of other weeds. I mean, not mint is a weed, but that's just naturally.
Yes.
And so, oh yeah, you're right. It is technically a weed. So that was what was called grama because we did not take water and pour it directly onto the plants. It was just a result, and maybe a wanted but not needed result because all week long it was getting enough water from the sink, and so you weren't adding on Shabbat. So all I'm saying is that if you have a place that is in the open, and it's likely that if you pour water, from the Netilat Yadayim or something like that, on the ground, it might grow. That is forbidden. It looks like a melacha, but if it's this way of grama or just completely unintentional, or you're pouring water where there's plastic underneath or all kinds of other things that will block the growth, then it is allowed. And I think that's also related to this idea of snow, that when you step on it, and even if you're, technically adding water to the ground and you might be, feeding the grass underneath, as long as you're not mitkaven, and like we
Mm.
talked about a football field where you are going to for sure tear grass if it's real grass as opposed to the fake stuff. That is, I guess, the definition between the two.
Mm.
Last but not least,
Mm.
the the rabbis said that the cheleg is a blessing. They recognize that there's all kinds of agricultural trees and others that need that frost and that need that coldness. And so you're not allowed to deliberately take snow from one place to the other where you'll be helping the plants. Um, and if you want to remove the snow from your path in order to go to shul or whatever, the rabbis suggested salt rather than actual removing with a shovel, because removing with a shovel looks like a melacha, even though it isn't, but it looks like you're digging. Um, Again, you're not digging in snow because digging according to the Torah is in plowing, so choresh, that's only in ground. But according to the rabbis in YU and others, it is permissible to put salt on your sidewalk in order to be able to safely go to shul or whatever other mitzvah you're doing on Shabbat, and that's called makom tzorech, as they say. And we'll stop here and we'll open up for questions.